Welcome back. Well, yes, as you may have seen in the welcoming slide, we do have His Excellency Simon Lalong, Governor of Plateau State and the Chairman of Northern Governors Forum. Good morning and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, yes, we do know that Northern Governors had a meeting. They didn't come together. It was a teleconference meeting at the very first. I mean, lots of things are changing for different people. How did the meeting go? I mean, was it odd presiding over a teleconference meeting for the governors for you, Your Excellency?
Thank you and good morning. And I'm very happy to be here today. Well, at the Northern Governors Forum, we had a teleconference. And that teleconference, it was also in addition to the teleconference that we had at the Governors Forum, the General Governors Forum. Now we look at the things and we realize that there were certain problems that were really peculiar to the North. And you know, the settlements in the North, and of course the fact that even with this pandemic, we had only one testing center in the North, which was in Abuja, and is not adequate. And also the fact that there were not much grants were coming to the North to address some of these issues, and then to also have a general perspective after a peer review about decisions that we'll take to address especially cross-border transmission. And so at the end of the day, we were all unanimous on some of the decisions that we took. First of all, the forum agreed to control of the cross-border transmission, and that was to address also to say that we emphasize the need to have a very strict border attention. And you know, that was even shortly before we started realizing the effect of the virus in Kano. Kano is the largest city in Nigeria, and so to underestimate the effect of this virus in places like that was going to be very, very dangerous, not only to the North, but to the country. And so we put that emphasis with attention on places like Kano, Kaduna. You can see what is happening to Kano. You can see what is happening to Kano now. And so all of us were even going to agree to have a unanimous lockdown. But eventually, we listened to some of the states, and at the end of the day, we realized that states have their peculiarities. But then we advised that we must have a lockdown, either partial lockdown or total lockdown. So those were some of the things that we agreed upon. And we also look at the socio-economic aspect. Apart from the health hazard, we look at it, what will be the post effect of COVID-19 generally in the North. And then we submitted and we set up a committee to be chaired by the governor of Kebbi to address the economic aspect, as we also address the health aspect as it is now. That is our position.
So, speaking about the peculiarities, because you said each state, they have their peculiarities, so you all could not agree on total lockdowns. Could you shed some light on some of those peculiarities, and as a result of what's happening in Kano now, do you think that may likely change?
Well, some of the problems or the complaints that came from some of the states some of them were in respect to palliatives, lack of palliatives, and also to the fact that some complained that we're almost getting to Ramadan period, and you start a lockdown now without palliatives, without proper arrangement. There will be grumblings here and there. And above all, you know, the North are predominantly farmers. And we are into the rainy season. Now you have a lockdown, there's no food, and there is no hope of producing the food even after the COVID-19. Then there is going to be a dangerous situation. Now all we agreed was that looking at some of these peculiarities, let us first of all allow a little time while we go to source for additional grants, either from the federal government or from spirited individuals, And so when we get these palliatives, then we can be talking of total lockdown. But in the meantime, we agree that states should look at their peculiarities and see how to do the partial lockdown or the total lockdown.
I don't know if the meeting also factored in the possibility of quicker spread while the partial lockdown is going on. In your state, for instance, you have had to take some measures, even though there is yet to record any case at that. But then there is a general understanding that interstate travel is largely responsible for the spread in many, many communities. We've seen, just as you said, what has happened, what is happening in Kano, when the figures seem to be coming a little faster than a number of people would have guessed, than anyone would have guessed. But then the fear was always there. So while the partial lockdown or no lockdown in some cases may be on, and there are fears that there could be a spread while there is the measures are still relaxed.
Well, I think we discussed that one. And well, for me personally, I was moving them towards a total lockdown, because at the time we were talking, I already had a total lockdown in my state, and a few of the states in the north also had total lockdown. We had a very good experience from the governor of Kaduna State, who himself was a victim of this, and to date, he still says, "I am positive. I am still positive." To imagine that a governor up to this time, after 2 double tests, is saying that I am still positive, and also narrated the impact of lack of total lockdown in some of the states. So it was something that I thought the governors will also look at and see the seriousness on some of these issues. But at the end of the day, of course, when you are a leader, you marry opinions and look at it. But shortly after that meeting, I saw even some states that were saying they didn't want to do locking down completely, because the virus was not getting to their states. And the COVID-19 is not something that you wait until it gets to your state. Just like I did in my state, and I used the Boy Scout motto, "Be prepared." And so I fight it as if I have an index case in my state. That's the way I did my own. Because when it gets to your state, you don't know the effect of the spread. You cannot control the effect of the spread. So the best thing is to fight it as if you already have a case in your state. So we did that emphasis, but it's like, for now, I think almost all the northern part of the northern states are almost getting into a lockdown, because everybody is doing lockdown. And then part of the problem was that if you are going to do a lockdown, give them opportunity to restock. So that's what we did in Plateau State. Shortly after that meeting, I wanted to continue with my lockdown, but I realized too that we cannot talk of the lockdown always. We can't lock down hunger. As you are locking down people, you cannot lock down hunger. So you must also look at those peculiarities. So we gave them in the Plateau State, we gave about 3 days for people to go and restock. But during this period, it is partial lockdown. After the 3 days, we are going back to full lockdown.
I recall during that meeting also you talked about the federal government's intervention, the palliatives. And at that point, you said that you had not gotten any dime whatsoever from the federal government in terms of allocations, palliatives. Is that still the case right now, or have things changed? Have you been speaking to the federal government? What response have you gotten?
Well, after that meeting, we addressed the issue with the federal government. We also addressed the issue with the COVID committee, ably led by Alhaji Aliko Dangote, especially in respect to palliatives that are coming to the north. And we discussed with the chairman of the PTF, the Presidential Task Force himself, the secretary to the government, Barrister Boss Mustafa, And we have hope that things are now going to start moving, because at the FCT, we realize that some things have been given to the FCT. Now we are waiting for the palliatives in some parts of the states, because after a discussion or teleconference and inviting the COVID group, the MD of Access Bank, Mr. Herbert Wige, explained to us that yes, 20 states are going to be the first beneficiaries, but all of the rest of the states are also going to be getting it immediately. So it is not an issue of time gap. So we are very, very hopeful and still praying that these things will start coming, because without palliative, of course, you are beginning to get resistance from some of the states where there are total lockdown, because you can't control people when you don't have anything to also assure them that when they are kept at home, especially the vulnerable within us, something will be done for them.
But, Your Excellency, I mean, if you take a look, there are those who are talking about this beneficiaries of the national cash transfer as of the 9th of April 2020. They see Katsina, Zamfara, Jigawa, Kano, Plateau, Kebbi, Kogi, Benue, Nasarawa, Kaduna, Kwara, Gombe, Akwa Ibom, Yobe. So in that order, so being the key, higher ranking beneficiaries of the cash transfer. So did you also factor this in, or is this completely different from the palliatives that you're referring to at the moment?
Well, those are regarded as part of the palliatives. And we started the social investment program not today. I heard some states even saying up to today that they are not aware of anything like that. This thing was brought to the National Economic Council, and it was chaired by the Vice President. The Vice President, I saw the determination in when the Vice President was trying to enlighten people and to also encourage states to key into it. In my state, we keyed into it for a very long time. We've been beneficiaries of this the social investment program for over 2 years now, And so to us, it's a continuation. And I will be surprised that states were not aware. We put in focal persons, and those focal persons were very active in accessing some of this. So it's a continuation. And those were things that we believe, yes, they are part of the vulnerable in the society. If you talk of graduates who are moving about, I think without jobs, they are dangerous. They will be very dangerous species if you leave them without jobs. You talk about the poorest of the poor, and the empower, that is for graduates. You talk about the poorest of the poor, and then the feeding program, which has a very wide national awareness campaign. So people were already there. Now, if you are able to take these people, the next is for the states to determine who are the next vulnerable groups of people, and that is the kind of palliative we are talking about. So in the north, yes, we did that, but I can see it was very slow. It is now that they're beginning to do that, and they have not even gone to so many of the states. In my state, we started just this week, and they are continuing, because if in spite of the lockdown, I still emphasize that they should be given an exemption to go and do the palliatives. Now, the other palliative that is coming from the address at the governor's conference is going to be in form of equipments, health equipments to strengthen the hospitals, and also food items, because some people were waiting for money to be given to them. I don't think that is what they said. So what they are saying is that it's not going to be money. It's going to be food. Items will be bought. They will send it to the states, but the governors will be in charge. The governors will also, in their states, set up committees for distribution. They will identify the vulnerable groups in the state and then send some of these food items to those categories of people. And I have emphasized in my state that salary earners, people who are already on salary, you are getting your salary as and when due. In Plateau State, we pay salaries as and when due, as it is now. We are preparing to pay April salary. So for people who have salaries, you should now know how to manage your salary while sitting at home.
Just as you said, some people might be expecting money, but they might not get it. Maybe what they will get is, food materials and vouchers, maybe. There's also another group, Arawa group, that is saying that, well, instead of giving governors, the funds, just maybe, governors across that region should not be given the funds. And they are concerned about the management of the funds. And that's been a concern across board, not just for your region, not just for states, even for the federal government. So the question is, what measures are you putting in place so that we can ensure accountability during this period?
Well, I think to the benefit of those who are saying that governors wanted funds, that was not what governors said. Governors said, look, you choose any of it. We're amenable to any of the process. At the end of the day, we said, look, buy the equipment, buy them and bring to the governors. Let the governors also know the control of those who are vulnerable in the states. So in addition to what they were also doing, the contribution, states also did their own contribution. Like in my state, we started a fund quickly. We raised a fund and we raised almost 30 million. In addition to the 30 million, we also spent some money in addressing the issues while also looking up to the federal government. Why we are asking federal government for money is because at the last count of the last month, the distribution of the federation account went so low. It could not even afford to pay salaries in many of the states. And now you are talking of addressing COVID-19. Now, why is federal government looking for money? It's because it's overwhelming. So if it is overwhelming on the federal government, you will also expect that it's going to be overwhelming on the states. So that is why we're also asking the federal government. Today, they have given them about 10 billion or more to areas like Lagos. So it's to address the issue. It's not to say that Lagos is very poor, but we are saying that this pandemic may go beyond what we're expecting, but God forbid. So if we are going to address it, we need some assistance from the government. So as they are bringing the food, the issue of transparency will also be addressed, because in every state it was advised. The chairman of the Governors Forum, Kaide Fahimi, also advised every state governor to be able to set up a committee that will now see to the distribution. In Plateau State, I said a committee, very strong committee, comprising of traditional rulers, religious leaders, the youth council, the disabled, and all stakeholders. And I put the deputy governor to chair that committee. So they are now already sitting down to decide how to do the distribution, how to raise the funds, and also ensure that there is transparency in the management of those funds.
Let me take you back to something we discussed the other time about interstate travel. Perhaps there is a need for some form of collaboration. I would like to know what kind of collaborations there are, because when people move from state to state, there will be, of course, a need to. Is there any plan? Let me just ask you straight away, to mediate in how people move from state to state, in the north especially. Of the 19 states in the north, 6 of them already have, and there are only 3 states in the north that do not have states with COVID-19 bordering them. So what's the plan to make sure that there is monitoring of interstate borders in the plan to curtail the spread of this virus?
Well, I told you that first of all, that was what we strongly advised at our conference at the Northern Governors Forum, because we saw that there was pressure on states that were doing lockdown, complete lockdown. Because if you do lockdown and the neighboring states are also not doing lockdown, you have a lot of people rushing and moving to your state. And you know, most of this is transmitted by people traveling, taking it from one place to the other. What happened in Kano came from Lagos. What happened in Kano came from Lagos. What happened in Lagos came outside Nigeria. So if you have to curtail this, then you have to measure and also put in very strict measures to address the cross-border transmission. So we emphasize that states that are under lockdown and people are complying are getting pressures from states that have refused to lock down, because they allow their citizens to be moving through the borders. You know, there's the extent to which you can control people at the border. As you are controlling at the major borders, they are finding inroads through different routes. And when you do it, what we have in Plateau, for instance, of the 43, the first instance of 43 that we had, and we put them to isolation centers, and we forced them to do the testing. All of them came outside. All of them came outside the state, from outside the state. Now we are putting the borders on. Sometimes, yes, you have isolated cases where people will sneak in even through the bush and use their ingenuity and sneak in through the bush to come to the states. But what we have done, for instance, and Kaduna did the same thing. Kaduna did it, and we're also doing it. I think Kano is about doing it. Is that when we get you sneaked into the place, we take you, we quarantine you for 14 days. And after 14 days, if you are tested negative, then you go back to your house. But when we catch you, we don't allow you, we prosecute you. And you either are kept in an isolation center, or you do as a kind of penalty. If you can't pay the fee, you do community service. We put you to forceful community service, because it is an offense for anybody to break the regulations, that were put in the state. So I can see that the states are also not also complying now, because people were looking at it and it was not a serious thing. I can see the way it is moving. It is moving in a very dangerous manner, and these are the incubation periods. And so during this incubation period, if leaders are not serious, then it means that the purpose of our being elected is not there.
Did Plateau, because you said you might be facing pressure from other states as a result of them not having total lockdown, contrary to states who have, were there anyone who Plateau State caught sneaking into the state, flouting the lockdown order?
Well, we have it. But to be specific, we have borders with Bauchi. Bauchi has not locked down. You remember, even the governor was a victim. Up to today, Bauchi has not locked down. We have borders with Benue. Benue has not locked down. We have borders with Taraba. They have not locked down. Nasarawa is partial lockdown. So it's only Kaduna that is locked down. Now within these borders, no matter what I do, if I lock down Plateau, these pressures will also be coming. People will move in. People move in, they say they want to come and do business. They want to come and sell. They want to come and pass. Plateau is a transit area. It's a transit road for Bauchi, for Gombe, for Adamawa, for Yobe, for Borno, for Borno. So it is going to be very, very difficult. It has been very, very difficult for us controlling the border. Whatever it will take us, we do our best to control borders, because we see trailers coming. And some are even coming from Lagos. We are coming from Lagos. We had a case of a boss who pretended that they were journalists. Would put a label that they were journalists moving around. But at the end of the day, when they were caught and investigated, we realized that they were not journalists, passengers who were moving. We've quarantined them. We've quarantined all of them. They are all under quarantine. And so we do things like that. We put that in the note, and it may not be 100% compliance, but we're advising the governors, because this is a pandemic that can get to any state. Just like the DG NCDC said, he said every state has it. It's the ability to fish, to fish out and get the proper testing that is the problem that we have. But we thank God that we have a testing center in Plateau State. And I've told the neighboring states, come to Plateau State. The place is there idle. It has also capacity to test about 1,000 people in a day.
All right,
so
Your Excellency.
We must take.
We will come back to you when we return in just a moment, so please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, Your Excellency, in light of all that you have said, and especially after seeing what's going on in Kano, because the meeting happened before those cases began to spread, as it were, in Kano, do you think that there will be any reason whatsoever, maybe when you have your next meeting, why they will not all agree that, well, now, having seen the way it's playing out, we all will agree on a total lockdown?
Well, in the not, that time I said we were doing a peer review, and after explaining what was happening in the states and also the steps taken by some of the states, we said we should now go back and look at the peculiarities. So immediately we left that place. We saw what was happening in Kano. And because it is happening in Kano, I have seen a lockdown too in Kwara. I have seen other states adopting it. So, but we agreed that we are going to meet again, because to look at how far we've gone with some of the steps that are taken, I see a situation where eventually, if what we are seeing in Kano is anything to go by, it means that all the states will be struggling for a lockdown, because some of the things, the difficulties that we had mentioned are now being addressed. The issue of palliatives, the palliatives are also coming, but the states were also to go back and prepare their own palliatives. Let the one from federal government be complementary. Otherwise, you continue to wait for palliative, you will not take major steps to address this pandemic. So I see a situation. We may not have a total lockdown with all the states, but then I think we're also appealing to the federal government to look at it, because as we are playing our roles, federal government also has the authority to, at the end of the day, just like they declared in Lagos, Ogun, and FCT, to also declare, eventually, if this is getting worse, the federal government may also declare a total lockdown in the whole country. So with that, everybody must abide by it. But I see they sit at home, and then the total lockdown for now as the best remedy for the pandemic.
You earlier in our conversation, you mentioned the Ramadan as one of the reasons that some of them are saying lockdown at this point may not be advisable. But we also know that a critical element in containing coronavirus disease from spreading is social distancing. Now, during the Ramadan, the tradition, the culture is to have communal feasting during the Ramadan. If there is no lockdown in these states, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to curtail the spread of coronavirus disease, especially if people have to gather to eat together, to break the fast and all of that. Is there any thinking along that line for the Northern Governors Forum so that we can use that as a measurement of containing this thing? Because you would agree that it's a critical element to consider.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I always start with myself. And last time during the Easter, I'm a Catholic. You know what Easter means to a Catholic. So it was getting to Easter, and there were agitations here and there, appeal from all quarters that in Plateau, you cannot leave these people. You must leave us to address Easter, to celebrate Easter, to pray. That is the period that we're going to pray. I just kept quiet. I said, you only pray when you are alive. If you are not alive, you will not pray. And what we did in Plateau was to ensure that during the Easter, which we also realized was a period that people are going to be gathering together, the social distancing will be abused. And what we did was to appeal to the people. We are not going to celebrate Easter. We didn't celebrate Easter. We had a lockdown. And today people are now applauding it. They are saying, no, Governor, you took a right step. I said, yes. If we allow you to do Easter, today we'll be talking about 1 or 2 index cases, and then you start running. Why did you allow us? Why did you allow that? The best thing is to take the insult, take the abuse. We did that, and we all curtail the issue of distancing. So the same example we gave to other parts of the northern governors, and we'll say, look, we must look at this thing holistically and look at it objectively, without sentiments to our religious bias. I read that Jigawa has taken a step. They are saying that most of the during the Ramadan, issues that will bring people together, some of the prayers will not be said. But of course, Kano has already taken a decision. You know, Kano is predominantly Muslim state. They have done a lockdown, and I'm not sure the governor is going to leave an exception for observance of Ramadan. Kaduna has done same. So we expect that we are also liaising with them, appealing to them to look at it, because if we allow it because of Ramadan, at the end of the day, we will regret in controlling the pandemic, the spread of the virus in other states, not even our state, but into other parts of the country.
Regret. I mean, this pandemic has exposed the flaws in our health system, from primary to tertiary healthcare, across all the major value chains of our healthcare system. And as a governor, I'd like to know, do you have any regrets, maybe lessons learned from this pandemic, as to what maybe we should have done and what will be done such that we don't get into this mess again? Any of such for you?
Well, particularly for my state, I wouldn't say I have a regret, because right from the beginning, our focus was on health and education. Health and education. And you can see that even before the COVID-19, we had Ebola, we had Lassa fever, and the way we managed it in Plateau State was very, very fantastic. We didn't have much of the cases in Plateau. We didn't have Ebola in Plateau State. Right from the beginning, I said my focus has been on health and education. And to that effect, we started building first-class hospitals in the state. As I'm talking, there is ongoing projects of first-class hospitals, international hospitals in Plateau State, about 5 of them already. Apart from that, we went into the health system to renovate and equip our moribund hospitals in the state. We were almost getting to full standard when this pandemic came in. And so when it came in, it was very easy for us to address it with the regulations by setting mobile courts for enforcement, by setting a committee was already in existence. So you can see when they even said we're giving a Plateau testing, I told the DG, I said it is long overdue. For you to even say that it is now that you are giving a testing center in Plateau, I said for me, if I have something that will argue, I will argue. Because I have about 4 good laboratories in Plateau State. The Jos University Teaching Hospital, which was also addressing the Lassa fever and addressing Ebola. And we had even the government hospital, our own Plateau State Specialist Hospital, which I equipped and which was confirmed by the World Health Organization. And then you have one of the best in West Africa, the NVRI laboratory. When I went there, I saw that. That's why I said it is underutilized. So federal government should put attention to where they have invested so much money, rather than allowing people to set up. I said this laboratory was there, and over 200 people were already trained on the job. All they needed was reagents to put to that place, and then to take care of neighboring states around. So when they were dilly-dallying, I said, look, if this thing requires that we begin to write protests, we'll write protests. But eventually, it was considered, and Von Veterinary Institute has a testing center. So Bauchi will come to that place, Gombe will come to that place. Instead of rushing to going to Abuja, Nasarawa here will come to that place. Taraba will also patronize it, and Benue, part of Kaduna. So it's something that was our worry. And if we have things like that already prepared, I'm very happy. that today we don't have an index case, but that is not, however, to say that we don't have in my state. I'm now sensitizing people to go for testing where they see symptoms of this disease anywhere, either in the village, because the level of awareness is so high in the state that if they see any stranger, even if it is their neighbor, their brother who came back from anywhere, they ask them, they say we just came back from Lagos. They'll quickly call and say, look, if you came back from Lagos or you came back from Abuja, please isolate yourself. We'll call people to come and test you. So that's what we're doing in the state. So we used to send our tests blood samples to Abuja, but now we're not sending it to Abuja. People are now rushing to Plateau.
People coming in from Lagos will not be stigmatized. I mean, we hope it's not taken to the next level. But, you talk about the index case not being recorded. Yes, you have extended that lockdown. So let's project a bit. If after the end of this extension of the lockdown in your state, you still don't record any case, would you be relaxing the lockdown and maybe looking to open up again?
No, we're not going to relax. We have established those laboratories. We have established about 3 laboratories for the state. Even in the government house, we have a hospital that is well equipped with a laboratory in the government house of Plateau State. The Plateau Hospital has been of great emphasis, and we have emphasized that. We thank God, even through our efforts. Pastor Adeboye, our father, Pastor Adeboye, saw the effort, and he came and established and came and brought in equipment for our laboratory at the Plateau State Specialist Hospital. So we've ordered for equipment, and most of the equipments are going to come. So we're not going to relax at all. There are 2 things you can always do. Even if you do those things and leave, those things will remain indelible in the minds of citizens. The health and education. I told you that I have a special project. They call it Lalong Legacy Project. I said, if it is only this one that I will live in Plateau, I will leave that. That is education. We are building first-class institutions and equipping them very well to compete with any of the institutions in Nigeria. Right now, we have about 6 of them, and then about 6 hospitals that are going to be equipped. This one is also another eye-opener. Already, we have laboratories. We have those equipments again at the Bingham Teaching Hospital. The Bingham University has a teaching hospital in Jos. So in terms of these facilities, we are equipped, and we'll continue to put additional facilities because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. Today we are talking of COVID-19. We didn't know that COVID-19 was coming, but we had addressed the issue of smallpox, of monkeypox, through the NVRI. When I went there, I said they are doing research on monkeypox. They have done research on Lassa fever. So as we do, we are doing research, and I said, please, I advise Nigerians, I'm going to make a special presentation to the federal government to be sure that if they establish an institute like NVRI, they should equip that institute. That institute is going to be of great help, not only to people, but especially in agriculture that we are talking about. We said agriculture is a means of diversification. So if you are going to talk about diversifying our economy, then you must also address it squarely. You address it, it's a research center, and that research center is still good.
All right, Your Excellency, we're winding down now, and could you tell us, from what you've seen, the trajectory in your state and perhaps in the country, do you think that at the end of this extra 2 weeks, because we understand you also extended your lockdown, do you think that that lockdown is going to be lifted, or would you recommend, or you think from what you've seen, there may just be another 2 weeks afterwards?
Well, in my state, I told them, I said, look, we will have to be evaluating it from time to time. So, but make up your minds that, yes, so long as this lockdown, as this pandemic goes on, you'll be prepared to make the sacrifice. And the sacrifice is at the end of the day, if we get it over, everybody will relax. But if you don't get it over, so long as it's spreading everywhere, we are also prepared that because we have a special task force, we are looking ahead that what will happen. And that was why I told you from the beginning that we've set up a committee for the north, for northern Nigeria to look at the the present condition and also after the COVID-19, what happens to the north. And that is what, one committee that I've also set up in my state to look at what happened. What are we going to do? What are we going to do after COVID-19? So people should be prepared for that. And then talking about the stigma and discrimination, I have made it very categorically clear that COVID-19 is not a death sentence. We've emphasized on people. That was why I made an example with myself. When people were running away from the test, I put all my family, I put them together. My son came back from UK, and the very thing we did was isolate him, put him to a test. And the rest, I went into a test, and with my wife and the remaining part of the children. And at the end of the day, all of us were confirmed negative. So the VIPs should come out. There's no stigma about this. When I came out, I told them, I said, look, I've gone to test, and this is my position. If my position was positive, I will tell you it is positive. I will isolate myself. Even before that test, I went into isolation because when we came back from Abuja and we saw that some governors were positive, I said, yes, we had interaction, all of us. We had meetings with all these governors. So it's best for us to go and make the test show example. So this is what we are doing, and I will advise people to follow the rules, very well. And to the extent that we have been very proactive in Plateau State. We've cut our budget size to 40%. We've reduced allowances of political appointees and suspended the issue of employment and even the payment. Our workers agreed with us on the payment of the 30,000 minimum wage for now. So for us, we had concluded on the issue of 30,000, but then they said, no, suspend it. Because this COVID-19, we don't know the extent. So all of us, we are planning ahead, and we are already going far. Yes.
Just before we go, there have been reports of killings in Plateau State between late last month and up until a couple of days ago. And there are concerns, and I'm sure you are also concerned. Have you been able to track why this is happening and what has been done to curb the incessant killings?
Yes, well, thank you very much. I just had a meeting yesterday, security meeting. There was change of baton at the Operation Safe Haven. So the new officer came in, Major General Konko, to replace Major General Agundu. And then within that time, we saw pockets of killings in one of the areas, that's the Basa, near the barracks. So that compelled me to have an emergency meeting of the security meeting yesterday. And at the security meeting, we were able to handle the issue. And because now soldiers are there, the police, combined team of police and soldiers are there in that place. So not only there, we are not also expecting that there will be pockets of killings here and there, because we are moving soldiers, moving the security to all the places that we believe there are suspected cases of crisis, either ethnic or religious. So, criminals take advantage of the COVID. Some people will take advantage of the COVID-19 to go and perpetrate crimes. So we're handling it because we have a very strong security committee of the task force. And then apart from that, our main security in the state is also addressed. So as it is now, security are mobilized those areas. So we're tracking and also trying to find out if we'll get arrest. We'll arrest some of them. You know that the last thing I did the last time was to arrest some of the community leaders, to arrest the arrows. They are still under prosecution. So we don't joke with security in my state.
All right, then, Your Excellency, Simon Lalong, Governor of Plateau State and Chairman, Northern Governors Forum, thank you for talking to us today on the program, and we wish you all the best in your efforts.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
All right, then. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.